Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The stranger's face in the mirror was a revelation, a hidden self uncovered. Carefully crafted, every feature was transformed. The brown hair, once wild, now tamed into a sleek bob that accentuated delicate cheekbones and elegant brows. The eyes, once overshadowed by familiarity, shone with newfound light, enhanced by meticulous makeup that had been months in the making. Her hands, calloused from a life of hard work, shook ever so slightly as she held the mascara wand, adding a final touch to this masterpiece. With a steadying breath, she silently encouraged herself. "You're ready for this, Anaya." The soft whisper filled the room, its quiet strength belying the power it held. A new identity, a true one, was ready to step into the world, leaving behind the name that never quite fit, erasing the old life lived as Dylan. No, everything already had changed. This was merely the world catching up. The forest green suede mini dress hung on the closet door, an elegant choice that had taken hours of deliberation. Next to it stood nude pumps, modest in height, but undeniably feminine. Tonight would be the first time stepping out, not as Dallas pretending, but as Adeline being. The phone buzzed on the vanity. "On our way up, girl. You ready to shine?" Melissa's text glowed on the screen. "Ready?" The question echoed. After months of therapy, after years of questioning, after a lifetime of discomfort, was anyone ever truly ready? The doorbell rang, and Adeline's heart leapt into her throat. With one last glance in the mirror, she grabbed the dress and stepped into the bathroom to change. The fabric slid over her body, hugging curves that had been carefully created with the right undergarments. The person who emerged from the bathroom was someone new, yet familiar, someone who had always existed beneath the surface. Opening the apartment door revealed Melissa and Olivia, both dressed for a night out, both freezing mid-conversation as they took in the sight before them. "Holy shit," Melissa whispered, her hand rising to her mouth. "Adeline, you're stunning!" Olivia, never one for restraint, squealed and rushed forward for a hug. "Look at you! That dress is absolutely perfect with your coloring!" Their reactions loosened something tight in Adeline's chest. These friends had known Dallas for years, had stood by through the coming out, the therapy, the decision to transition. Their acceptance wasn't surprising, but their genuine amazement at her appearance made her confidence swell. "You really think so?" Adeline asked, smoothing the dress over her hips. "I was worried it might be too much for my first night out." "Too much? Girl, it's not enough!" Olivia laughed, stepping back to appraise the outfit. "You need jewelry. Here." She unclasped one of her own gold necklaces and fastened it around Adeline's neck. Melissa rummaged through her purse and produced a tube of lipstick. "And that nude shade is cute, but for where we're going, you need something with more pop." The burgundy color they applied felt bold, but when Adeline checked her reflection in the entryway mirror, everything seemed to click into place. The brown hair, the green dress, the gold necklace, and now the rich lip color. She looked cohesive, intentional, beautiful. "Ready?" Melissa asked, dangling her car keys. This time, the answer came without hesitation. "Ready." The drive to Club Azure passed in a blur of nervous chatter and encouraging words. Adeline's friends had chosen the venue carefully, upscale enough to feel special for her first outing, progressive enough that safety wouldn't be a concern, and far enough from her workplace that she wouldn't likely run into colleagues before she was ready. As they pulled into the parking lot, Adeline's stomach fluttered with butterflies. "What if people can tell?" she whispered, the old fear rising despite herself. Olivia turned in the passenger seat to face her. "Adeline, honey, listen to me. You look gorgeous, but more importantly, you're you tonight. That confidence is what people will see." Melissa nodded, catching Adeline's eyes in the rearview mirror. "And if anyone gives you trouble, they'll have to deal with us. But they won't. Trust me." The club's entrance loomed ahead, a sleek door with a small line forming outside. Adeline took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, wobbling slightly on her heels before finding her balance. The night air felt different against her skin, the sounds of the city sharper somehow. Or perhaps it was just that everything felt more immediate, more real, now that she was finally inhabiting her truth. The bouncer barely glanced at their IDs, waving them in with a bored expression that made Adeline's heart soar. He had seen her ID, still legally Dallas, and looked at her face, and nothing had registered as unusual. Inside, the club pulsed with music and colored lights. Bodies moved on the dance floor. Drinks clinked at the bar, and conversations hummed at high volume from every corner. It was overwhelming, but exhilarating. "First stop, drinks," Olivia announced, taking Adeline's hand and pulling her toward the bar. They ordered cocktails, something fruity and strong for Adeline, who needed the liquid courage, and found a small high-top table at the edge of the dance floor. From this vantage point, Adeline could observe the crowd while acclimating to her new reality. "To Adeline," Melissa toasted, raising her glass. "The woman you always were, finally getting to live her life." The three clinked glasses, and Adeline took a long sip, letting the alcohol warm her from the inside. "Thank you both," she said, emotion making her voice husky. "For everything. I wouldn't be here without you." "You'd be here eventually," Olivia countered, squeezing her hand. "We just expedited the process." Adeline laughed, feeling the tension in her shoulders begin to release. The music changed to a popular dance track, and Olivia's eyes lit up. "Oh, we have to dance to this one!" she declared, already moving toward the dance floor. Melissa looked at Adeline questioningly. "What do you say? Ready to show off those legs in that gorgeous dress?" Dancing. Dancing as Adeline. The thought was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. "Let's do it," she decided, downing the rest of her drink for courage. The dance floor was crowded, bodies pressed together in the universal rhythm of weekend liberation. Adeline followed her friends into the throng, feeling conspicuous at first, hyper-aware of every movement. Did she dance too masculinely? Were her shoulders too broad under the dress? Did her voice carry too low when she laughed at something Olivia shouted over the music? But as the songs flowed one into another, something magical happened. The worries began to fade. The music took over, and Adeline found herself moving with a freedom she had never experienced before. There was no performance here, no conscious effort to seem feminine. There was just joy, the joy of being in her body, her real body, moving to the music. A tall man with a friendly smile caught her eye from across the dance floor. He raised his glass slightly in acknowledgement, and Adeline felt a blush rise to her cheeks. She smiled back, a quick flash before turning her attention back to her friends. "Did you see that?" Melissa whispered in her ear, having caught the exchange. "That gorgeous guy was totally checking you out!" "Stop it!" Adeline laughed, but the validation sent a thrill through her. "I'm getting another round," Olivia announced after 2 more songs. "Same again for everyone?" Adeline and Melissa nodded, and as Olivia disappeared toward the bar, Adeline caught sight of the man again. He was closer now, apparently having moved gradually in their direction during the dancing. "He's coming over," Melissa stage whispered, pretending to fix her hair. "Oh my God, he's actually coming over!" Panic flared briefly in Adeline's chest. She hadn't prepared for this possibility. What would she say? What if he realized and reacted badly? But before she could voice any of these concerns, he was there, standing before them with that same easy smile. "Hi," he said, loud enough to be heard over the music. "I'm Michael. I was wondering if I could buy you a drink." He was looking directly at Adeline, no mistaking his intention. Up close, she could see he had kind eyes, crinkled slightly at the corners as he smiled. Adeline faltered, caught off guard. "My friend is actually getting drinks right now." "Another time, then," he said smoothly, not seeming put off. "Maybe a dance instead?" Melissa nudged Adeline subtly, encouragement clear in the gesture. "I'd like that," Adeline found herself saying, surprising even herself with the confidence in her voice. Michael's smile widened, and he held out his hand. As Adeline took it, allowing herself to be led a few steps away from Melissa, the reality of what was happening hit her. She was dancing with a man, as herself, as Adeline. No pretense, no hiding. The song was slower than the previous ones, allowing for conversation, the very thing she was most nervous about. Her voice hadn't undergone training yet, and while she could manage a slightly higher pitch when focused, she worried it would slip. "You look amazing in that dress," Michael said, his hand lightly resting on her waist as they moved to the music. "Green suits you." "Thank you," Adeline replied, consciously maintaining her feminine tone. "It's actually my first time wearing it out." "Lucky dress, then," he said with a wink. "Lucky me." The flirtation was so natural, so unforced, that it momentarily took Adeline's breath away. This wasn't politeness or tolerance. This was genuine interest. Michael was attracted to her, to Adeline. They danced through 2 songs, exchanging basic information. He was an architect, lived downtown, was out with colleagues who had since abandoned him for the night. She gave an edited version of her own story, mentioning her job in graphic design, but avoiding details that might complicate the moment. When Olivia returned with the drinks and waved enthusiastically from their table, Adeline took it as her cue. "I should get back to my friends," she said, feeling both relieved and disappointed that the interaction was ending. "Of course," Michael nodded understandingly. He hesitated, then added, "Could I get your number? I'd love to take you to dinner sometime." The question hung between them, fraught with implications. A date would mean disclosure, eventually. It would mean vulnerability beyond what Adeline had prepared for tonight. "I'm going through some changes right now," she said carefully. "I'm not sure if dating is the best idea." Something in her phrasing must have registered with him because understanding dawned in his eyes. "I see," he said, nodding slowly. "Well, how about this? I'll give you my number. If you decide you'd like that dinner, the ball's in your court." He pulled out his phone, created a new contact, and handed it to her. Adeline hesitated only briefly before typing in her real number, not Dallas's old contact, but a new entry under Adeline. When she handed the phone back, their fingers brushed, and Michael smiled that warm smile again. "I hope to hear from you, Adeline." The sound of her name on his lips sent a shiver through her. He knew. He had guessed, or sensed something, and he was still standing there, still smiling, still interested. "Thank you for the dance," she managed, returning his smile before turning to join her friends. Melissa and Olivia were practically vibrating with excitement as she approached their table. "Details now!" Olivia demanded, pushing a fresh cocktail toward her. Adeline recounted the conversation, including her suspicion that Michael had caught on to her situation. "And he still gave you his number? That's a good sign," Melissa observed. "Will you call him?" The question gave Adeline pause. Would she? Could she imagine herself dating as Adeline? It seemed like a step beyond tonight's already monumental achievement. "I don't know," she admitted. "One thing at a time. Tonight was already huge for me." "Fair enough," Olivia conceded, raising her glass. "And tonight has been a total success. Look at you, turning heads in that gorgeous green dress." Adeline smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for these women who had made this night possible. "It does feel pretty amazing," she agreed, running her hand over the suede material. "I never thought I could feel this right." "That's because you are right," Melissa said firmly. "This is who you are, Adeline. Dallas was the disguise, not this." The truth of those words resonated deep in Adeline's chest. For so long she had thought of her feminine self as the performance, the pretense. But standing here in this club, in this dress, with her brown hair styled just so, and her makeup enhancing rather than masking her features, she felt more authentic than she ever had before. The night continued, a whirlwind of dancing, drinks, and heartfelt conversations shouted over the music. Other men approached, some receiving polite rejections, a few earning a dance or two. None made the same impression as Michael, but each interaction built Adeline's confidence. By the time they decided to call it a night, Adeline's feet were aching from the heels, and her voice was hoarse from shouting over the music, slipping occasionally into its natural register without anyone seeming to notice or care. Outside in the cool night air, waiting for their rideshare, Adeline looked up at the stars, barely visible through the city's light pollution. "I never want this feeling to end," she confessed. Olivia, slightly tipsy and very emotional, threw her arms around Adeline. "It doesn't have to, honey. This is just the beginning." "Olivia's right," Melissa agreed, joining the hug. "Tonight wasn't a special occasion. It was your first normal night as yourself. There will be thousands more." Thousands more. The thought was dizzying, exhilarating. Thousands of nights as Adeline, living truthfully, without the burden of pretense that had weighed down Dallas for so long. The rideshare arrived, breaking up their moment, but not the feeling of possibility that had taken root in Adeline's heart. As they drove through the city streets, Adeline gazed out the window, taking in the familiar landscape with new eyes. The world hadn't changed tonight, but her place in it had, and that made all the difference. Back at her apartment, Adeline hugged her friends goodbye with promises to call the next day. Alone again, she kicked off the nude pumps with a groan of relief and padded to the bathroom. The face in the mirror was smudged now, makeup worn from hours of dancing and the occasional happy tear. But beneath the cosmetics, Adeline could still see herself, her true self, looking back. Carefully, She removed her makeup, watching as the enhanced version of her features gave way to their natural state. The dress came next, hung lovingly back in the closet for another occasion. The undergarments followed, each item a part of the carefully constructed presentation she had crafted. Standing there in just a robe, face clean, body bare of artifice, Adeline feared she might feel the old disconnect, the jarring return to discomfort that had always followed Dallas's rare experiments with cross-dressing in the past. But that sensation never came, because this wasn't cross-dressing. This wasn't a costume to be put on and removed. This was her, with or without the dress, the makeup, the carefully chosen accessories. Adeline ran her fingers through her brown hair, shorter than she'd like, but growing out now, free of the masculine cuts that had been its prison for decades. Soon it would reach her shoulders, frame her face as she'd always envisioned. Her phone chimed with a text, an unknown number, but the message made the sender clear. "It was wonderful meeting you tonight, Adeline. The offer for dinner stands whenever you're ready. No pressure, just good food and more dancing if you're up for it. Michael." Adeline smiled, setting the phone aside without responding yet. That was a decision for tomorrow, or next week, or whenever she felt ready to take another step forward. For now, it was enough to know that she had done it. She had walked into the world as herself and been received, not with tolerance or confusion, but with admiration and interest. She had danced and laughed and flirted as Adeline, and it had felt more natural than anything Dallas had ever done. Climbing into bed, Adeline felt exhaustion and exhilaration in equal measure. Her body was tired, but her spirit soared with the possibilities ahead. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, work emails that still addressed her as Dallas, appointments with specialists to discuss medical transition options, decisions about when and how to come out to less immediate circles. But those were concerns for another day. Tonight, Adeline closed her eyes, replaying the feeling of moving through the crowd in that green suede dress. No longer Dallas in disguise, but Adeline in her element. And for the first time in memory, she fell asleep with a smile. Her dreams, as real as her waking life, had finally become. Morning sunshine streamed through partially closed blinds, casting warm stripes across Adeline's bed. For a moment, in that hazy state between sleep and wakefulness, nothing had changed. Then, memory flooded back, and she sat up with a gasp. Last night, the club, dancing, Michael. Adeline grasped for her phone, wondering if it had all been a beautiful dream. But there it was, Michael's text, just as real in the morning light as it had been the night before, and several more messages from Melissa and Olivia, gushing about what an amazing night it had been, and checking that she was okay. With slightly shaky fingers, Adeline texted back reassurances. She was more than okay. She was transformed. The morning routine took on new significance. Each choice, from the citrus-scented body wash to the moisturizer she applied, felt like an affirmation rather than a concession. Even as she dressed in relatively neutral weekend clothes, jeans, and a soft sweater, she did so as Adeline, not as Dallas pretending. Over coffee, she scrolled through photos from the night before. Melissa had taken several. Adeline in her green dress, laughing with her friends, even one candid shot of her dancing with Michael, her face alight with joy. The woman in those photos wasn't a stranger. She was the person Adeline had always known herself to be. A sudden, fierce resolve gripped her. She didn't want to wait anymore. Didn't want to live half a life, Adeline only on special occasions, and Dallas in the mundane moments. With decisive movements, she opened her laptop and began composing an email to her boss. The words flowed easily, honest without being apologetic. I wanted to inform you that I am transgender and have begun the process of transition. Moving forward, I will be going by the name Adeline Carter, and I use she, her pronouns. I understand this may require some adjustment, and I'm happy to discuss any questions or concerns you might have. She paused, finger hovering over the send button. This was major. Once sent, there would be no going back. But wasn't that the point? She didn't want to go back. The email swooshed into cyberspace, and Adeline released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Done. One more step forward. Next, she opened her text conversation with Michael. The cursor blinked, waiting for her to make another decision. This one felt different, more personal, more vulnerable. Thank you for the dance last night, and for being so understanding. I would like to take you up on that dinner offer, but I want to be clear about who I am from the start. She explained her situation succinctly, without shame or equivocation. When she finished, she read it over once, twice, then sent it before she could lose her nerve. His response came faster than she expected. I meant what I said, Adeline. I'd like to get to know you better. Dinner this week? You pick the place. Tears pricked at her eyes, surprising in their intensity. This acceptance, so freely given, so matter-of-fact, was what she had feared she might never find. The rest of the day passed in a blur of small, significant moments. She called her parents, a conversation she had been rehearsing for weeks, but suddenly felt ready for. Their reaction was mixed, confusion, concern, but ultimately love. They would need time, her mother said, but they would always be there for their child, whatever name that child chose. She sorted through Dallas's closet, setting aside clothes that no longer served her, making room for new pieces that would express who she truly was. The green suede dress hung prominently now, a talisman of possibility. By evening, exhaustion had set in again, the emotional toll of the day's decisions catching up with her. But it was a good kind of tired, the satisfaction of work well done, of progress made. Her phone rang as she was contemplating dinner options. Melissa's name flashed on the screen. How are you doing today, gorgeous? Her friend's voice came through, warm with concern. Good, Adeline answered truthfully. Really good, actually. I've made some decisions. She recounted her actions, the email to her boss, the text to Michael, the call to her parents, the closet purge. Damn, girl, Melissa whistled. When you commit, you really commit. Adeline laughed, the sound freer than it had ever been. I just realized there's no point in waiting. This is who I am. Why pretend otherwise for even one more day? I'm proud of you, Melissa said, her voice thick with emotion. So, dinner with the hot architect, huh? When's that happening? Thursday, Adeline confirmed, butterflies dancing in her stomach at the thought. We're going to that new bistro downtown. Need a pre-date pep talk? Olivia and I could come over, help you pick an outfit. Absolutely, Adeline agreed immediately. The green dress had been perfect for the club, but a dinner date called for something different. I'd appreciate the help. They chatted a few minutes longer before hanging up, and Adeline found herself standing before the mirror again. The person reflected there was in transition, part Dallas, part Adeline, but moving decisively toward the latter. Her brown hair would grow longer. Her body might change with hormones, if she decided that was right for her. Her wardrobe would evolve, her legal name would update, her voice might train into new patterns. But the essential truth had already transformed. She was Adeline now, in her heart and soul and in the world. Everything else was just details. The week leading up to Thursday's date passed in a whirlwind of reactions and adjustments. Her boss had responded to the email with support that seemed genuine, if slightly awkward. HR had reached out to discuss practical matters. Email address changes, nameplates, benefit adjustments. Colleagues had varied in their responses, from enthusiastic acceptance to polite distance, but no one had been openly hostile. By Thursday afternoon, Adeline was a bundle of nerves, second-guessing the wisdom of agreeing to a date so early in her transition. But when Melissa and Olivia arrived at her apartment, laden with extra makeup options and accessories, their excitement proved contagious. "We brought options," Olivia announced, dumping a bag of jewelry onto Adeline's bed. "What are you thinking of wearing?" Adeline held up 2 dresses she had purchased earlier in the week. One, a deep navy wrap dress that emphasized her waist, the other, a burgundy sweater dress with a cowl neck. "The navy!" both friends said in unison, then laughed. "Definitely the navy," Melissa confirmed. "With your coloring and that gorgeous brown hair, you'll look stunning." An hour later, Adeline stood before the mirror, transformed once again, but in a subtler way than the club outfit had required. The navy dress was elegant without being overstated, her makeup polished rather than dramatic, her brown hair styled in soft waves that framed her face beautifully. "You look like you're going to a lovely dinner with a handsome man," Olivia observed with satisfaction. "Which is exactly what you're doing." "What if he—" Adeline started, the old fears surfacing. "He already knows," Melissa interrupted gently. "And he still wants to take you to dinner."
"That's a good start, Adeline."
The bistro Michael had suggested was intimate without being overly romantic, busy enough to provide ambient noise, but not so crowded that conversation required shouting. He was already seated when she arrived, standing as she approached the table.
"Adeline,"
he said, his smile warm and genuine.
"You look beautiful."
"Thank you," she replied, settling into the chair he held for her.
"Sorry if I'm a bit nervous. This is my first date as me." "I'm honored," Michael said, and the sincerity in his voice eased some of her tension. "And just so you know, this doesn't have to be anything more than a nice dinner between 2 people getting to know each other. No pressure." The meal that followed was one of the most comfortable experiences of Adeline's life. Michael was attentive without being intrusive, asking thoughtful questions about her interests and work while sharing stories from his own life. When the conversation eventually turned to her transition, it was Adeline who brought it up, feeling secure enough to share parts of her journey with this man, who gazed at her with such open interest. "I knew from a very young age that something was different," she explained, twirling pasta around her fork. "But I didn't have the language for it then. It wasn't until college that I even encountered the concept of being transgender, and even then, I spent years convincing myself it wasn't me." Michael nodded, listening intently. "What changed?" he asked. Adeline considered the question. "Nothing dramatic, just the slow realization that I couldn't keep living as someone I wasn't. Therapy helped. Friends like Melissa and Olivia, who saw me for who I was before I fully admitted it to myself. And honestly, just exhaustion with the pretense." "That makes sense," Michael said. "Being inauthentic takes a lot of energy."
"Exactly," Adeline agreed, surprised and pleased by his understanding. "The relief of just being myself, it's indescribable." Michael smiled, reaching across the table to briefly touch her hand.
"Well, I'm glad to be meeting the real you."
The rest of the evening flowed just as easily. They discovered shared interests in architecture and design, debated favorite films, and found common ground in their love of the city's hidden gems. When the check came, Michael insisted on paying, but with a caveat. You can get the next one, if you'd like there to be a next one. Adeline didn't hesitate. I'd like that very much. He walked her to her car, maintaining a respectful distance that Adeline both appreciated and found herself wishing he'd breach. At the vehicle, they faced each other, the moment charged with possibility. I had a wonderful time, Michael said, his voice dropping slightly. So did I, Adeline replied, her heart racing. He leaned in slowly, giving her ample time to pull away if she wanted to. But she didn't want to. His lips met hers in a gentle, questioning kiss that she returned with equal tenderness. When they separated, Michael's eyes were warm with admiration.
Good night, Adeline. I'll call you tomorrow.
I'd like that, she said again, the phrase becoming something of a refrain for the evening. The drive home was a blur of happy thoughts and replayed moments. The kiss had been perfect, affirming in a way Adeline hadn't known she needed until it happened. Michael had kissed her, Adeline, with full knowledge of who she was and how she had come to be standing before him in that navy dress. At home, she kicked off her heels and fell onto her bed, fully clothed, grinning at the ceiling like a teenager after prom. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Made it home safely. Just wanted to say again what a lovely evening that was. You're a remarkable woman, Adeline. The words, remarkable woman, sent a thrill through her that no compliment directed at Dallas had ever achieved. Because this was real. This was her. This was truth. Another text arrived, this one from Melissa. Details now. Laughing, Adeline called instead of texting, recounting the evening to her friend who squealed at all the right moments and declared Michael a keeper based on the evidence presented. Are you seeing him again? Melissa demanded. Saturday, Adeline confirmed. We're going to the art museum. Perfect second date, Melissa approved. Casual but cultured. You can wear that cute skirt we found last weekend. After hanging up, Adeline finally changed out of her date clothes, carefully hanging the navy dress back in the closet that was slowly transforming, just as she was. Dallas's bland button-downs and sensible slacks were steadily being replaced by pieces that expressed Adeline's aesthetic, feminine without being frivolous, elegant without being showy. In the bathroom, she removed her makeup methodically, the routine already becoming second nature. The face that emerged was increasingly familiar, still in flux perhaps, but undeniably hers. As she slipped into bed, Adeline reflected on how much had changed in just 1 week. And with each passing day, as Adeline embraced her true self with unwavering courage, the world around her began to transform. Prejudice wilted in the face of her unyielding spirit, and acceptance blossomed. The challenges she anticipated did materialize, but with every obstacle, Adeline's resilience and the support of her chosen family shone brighter, turning barriers into stepping stones for personal growth. Adeline's life became a tapestry woven with vibrant threads of self-love, community, and newfound confidence. She danced through days and spun through nights, her existence a testament to the beauty of authenticity. Though life's tapestry bore occasional thorns, her joy was a shield, and love, both given and received, a salve that healed all wounds. Each season of her life unveiled new dresses, not just fabric art, but expressions of an evolving soul.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!